Și o informație nouă, Agenția Națională Anticorupție a Ucrainei a trimis o scrisoare ministrului apărării al Federației Ruse, prin care îi mulțumește pentru toată corupția din armata rusă care a făcut posibil dezastrul militar. Text. Agenția își exprimă sincera recunoștință ministrului apărării al Federației Ruse, Sergei Shoigu, pentru contribuția sa neprețuită la faptul că mijloacele și resursele rusești pentru atacul asupra Ucrainei au fost furate în stadiul acumulării lor la granița dintre cele două țări. Acum, interviul pe care vi l-am promis, vicepremierul Ucrainei, într-un interviu realizat de Cristina Cilacu.
Olga Stefanișina, Vice Prime Minister of Ukraine, thank you for this exclusive interview for Digi24 Romania.
Thank you for the whole Romania for standing with Ukraine in these times.
We witness all the situation in Ukraine. War usually means a lot of crisis that happens in the same time. How do you hold up?
Well, I think that first and foremost, we feel the support and compassion from our neighboring countries, and first and foremost also from Poland and Romania, who has opened its borders and its hospitality to those people who are surviving from the war. And we've been working closely from the first 24 hours when the war started on the way how to support Ukrainian people affected by war and suffering. And we're extremely grateful to Romania, to its government, but first and foremost to the people of Romania. It was been open and to our nation and compassionate to it. The other very important element that from the very first moment all the government has been working with a cold mind and a strength to and the same spirit of fight as our army has, and we managed to organize within the first 24 hours the humanitarian staff and ensure that all the regions and parts of Ukraine affected by the war have access to all the necessary humanitarian needs, that they are not suffering from the lack of products, water, and other needs. They should be ensured. But of course, we have a very complicated situation with the access and to evacuation and access of humanitarian aid to those regions which are under control of Russian Federation. These are the parts of Ukraine when the real suffering is taking place. We care about each and every Ukrainian citizens, and believe me, we're doing all of our best to make sure that they are safe and ensure with all the needs and their security foremost ensured.
I have to ask you, because I noticed the barricades behind you. Where are you in this very moment when we record this interview?
Well, we are ensuring the security and continuity of the work of the government, and that's why we have to be prepared to any scenario. So we're in a special places, secure places, with all the necessary elements of security ensured.
It would be a meeting between Minister of Foreign Affairs Kuleba with his counterpart, Russian counterpart Lavrov, in Turkey. What is the mandate that Minister Kuleba has from President Zelensky for these negotiations?
Well, the mandate we all have is the mandate of our nation standing for freedom from the war and withdrawal of the Russian army from its territory. This is the first and foremost condition that we have. We understand that Russia is talking by the language of ultimatums, but what is important right now is to understand that we're not going to take any actions which would legitimize the inhumane and genocide activity of the Russian terrorists and its terroristic leadership on the territory of Ukraine. So, legalization or legitimization of these actions would mean that in 21st century, each and every nation, whether it is in Europe or around this continent, could face genocide, terroristic acts, and massive murder of civilian population and children without any provoked or inspired or inscripted aggression from our side.
But is Ukraine ready to, let's say, give up Crimea, Donbas, Luhansk for ending the war if it's on the list of the requests from Russia? This has been discussions at this level before the war started, and we should see the broader picture, that it's not only about Ukraine and Ukrainian territorial integrity and sovereignty. It's also about all of your countries.
and the threat the tyranny poses to the world. And Putin should be stopped, as well as Hitler. The war crimes happening in Ukraine, they are simply copy-pasted from what has been happening and done by the Nazi Germany. And I think that basically Germany should be the first country opposing and doing all of possible and impossible things to stop this, knowing the experience they all face and the burden of this responsibility in front of all of the world that Germany has been holding for years and decades. So I understand that this understanding is also to come in many European capitals. But the price of any tolerance towards everything which is happening now in Ukraine is the freedom of and security of all the NATO allies in Ukraine. So that's why we're not really concentrating on a very specific ultimatums. It's about like stopping this aggression and preventing it from happening further.
You are the minister responsible for integration in European Union and also with the relationship, euro-atlantic relationship. The response of your president regarding NATO seems to be clear. Ukraine is giving up this possibility. But what do you expect from the point of view of European Union when it comes to integrating Ukraine in the communitary bloc?
Well, I would put it. I will try to put it shortly, but very concretely. We do not really consider any package proposals, as Georgia and Moldova has also applied for the membership, and we're in a very different situation. Not only because of the war, basically, and the blood Ukrainians are already, for the third time in its history, for 30 years, are pleading for its European future and belonging to European family. Before the war started, Ukraine has been one of the top importers to EU and one of the largest markets in the European Union. And the level of our legal and economic integration has been extremely high. As well as for the last 2 years, together with the European Union, we have been assessing our compliance with the basic EU principles and Copenhagen criteria. So in that terms, Ukraine's technical preparedness for EU membership is extremely high, while taking the decision of granting Ukraine the membership to European Union. It's not the question about whether Germany or France wants to see Ukraine in European Union. It's about whether Germany or France or any other member state believes that Ukraine will overcome. Because when Ukraine overcomes and wins in this military aggression, Ukraine will restore itself back, and Ukraine will be again a strong and reliable partner for EU. So taking this decision for us, it's a matter of whether European leaders still have the room for thinking that Russia may win this war. And if it is so, then they will not take the decision and we will not be accepted to EU.
Putin says that he has a plan and everything is going according to the plan. None of us know its plan, but what is your worst expectation in Kiev, in Ukraine entirely?
I would pay attention to these words from Russian population. So if the plan of Putin was to lose more soldiers in Ukraine than for 10 years in Syria and Afghanistan, if the plan of Putin was to make sure that all the top companies of the world that was growing from the Russian market, if the plan of Putin was that Russian people and population are cut off from all the elements of the civilization, so why would they need such a leader?
NATO allies send Ukraine guns and other military equipment. Do you think this support is enough for you for the moment?
It's very important to understand that nobody can make any forecast about the length of this military aggression and its development. We understand that the multiplication effect of the sanction is only to come, and it takes some time. While it's very clear that Russia is now squeezed from all the possible sides, including by the military resistance of Ukraine. So, given this, I want to say that there's no estimation from our side ensured to have the necessary defensive capabilities as well as humanitarian needs ensured. We're doing a lot with our businesses and companies and volunteers, and we're the nation of those people who can be united in any crisis. But of course, the level of suffering and the crimes Russia is committing on our territory is extremely severe. So the support we're gaining should be permanent and continuous until the very last day the war would last.
At the level, people, does the aids for the population of Ukraine manage to get inside the country? We see these corridors for refugees. Sometimes Russia attack them, but on the other hand, Ukraine needs also food and medicine and supply of all kinds.
Well, basically, we've organized all the necessary logistics for receiving the humanitarian assistance from all parts of the world to Ukraine, but also its dissemination around the whole territory of Ukraine to the regions which are affected and deprived of this possibility to receive or get the necessary needs, including medical treatment, including all the necessary medical equipment needed. So far, it is done all over Ukraine. Of course, there's a severe security implications. Again, there are still some parts of Ukraine and some cities which are not under effective control of Ukrainian government, where the Russian armed forces are there. And this is part of the military operation to assassinate people, to make them fear, to commit crimes against civil population. Men have been murdered and killed, and women have been raped, and more than 50 children from these areas, they simply died, including a family which has been shelled in Irpin simply because they were trying to leave, and a child and a girl of 6 years old who died in Mariupol yesterday following the inability to get access to food and water. This is what's happening on these territories, and this is something where we are willing to deliver and to save people, our Ukrainian people suffering. But it is exclusively Russia who's blocking it. So we're once again calling to International Red Cross Organization and UN system, including UN Council of Human Rights, to identify, document these war crimes and terrorist crimes, but also to hold Russia accountable for the necessity to open and ensure functioning of the humanitarian corridors.
There is a superpower of the world, I'm talking about China, that seems to help Russia to survive the economical sanctions imposed by the West. But in the same time, I have to ask you, how does China help Ukraine, if it does?
Before the war started, we had a very good dynamics of our economic relations with China, and basically we called Ukraine the new China because we had an enormous potential to be revealed, and these relations were deemed to be economically friendly. Although we never had a very specific political agenda with China, it wasn't, let's say, our file. And we now understand that in terms of humanitarian aid and assistance, China is also supporting Ukraine. But at this very important moment, it's really important that the political support of China for peace, stability, and protection of civilian population in Ukraine and Ukraine's territorial integrity is more essential than any economic interest. And we're trying to reach China with this message because this is them who could play really a crucial role in ceasefire and withdrawal of troops from Russia, of Russian Federation, from the territory of Ukraine.